What's up, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers? Welcome to the video feed for episode 125 of Go Tell It to the Wall podcast. That's right. We'll get into more info on that as we get into the actual episode. But it's a little bit different than what we've been doing for the past year and a half. I guess getting back to normal a little bit. And we'll get into a little bit of reasoning behind that. And all that other good stuff as we get into episode 125. That being said, let's get right into it.
Who 1, 2, 3, go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall. Go tell it to the wall. Tell it to the wall.
All right, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers. Welcome to episode 125 of Go Tell It to the Wall podcast. That's right. 125, not Common Sense Sundays. Episode 125. We're getting back to normal. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but before we get there, let me throw some social plugs your way, as we always do at the beginning of every episode. You can keep up with us during episodes, after episodes, for episodes, whenever you so please, and you can do that in multiple locations. One of those would be facebook.com/Go Tell It to the Wall. That's right, facebook.com/Go Tell It to the Wall. I don't know why I made the arm motion for the slash there. For those of you only listening to the audio, I'm just a little bit fired up. We're like off cuff here and off schedule, and so I'm just all over the place today. But again, facebook.com/Go Tell It to the Wall. Of course, YouTube, head on over to youtube.com/Go Tell It to the Wall. That's our official YouTube channel. Keep you up to date on all the awesome videos that we post there, including our beer reviews, our parenting playlists, our mental health Mondays, all that good stuff. And of course, you can follow my own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean, again, at SoCalSean on Instagram. All kinds of great content on there if you are an Instagram user. All right. Oh, and most importantly, all-encompassing of those things, forgetting about the most important one, would be our website, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's right, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Given the certain individual running for governor down there in Texas, I'm no longer going to spell the last name because you should. It's all over the news. It's the same spelling as Beto down there. And not only are you going to find stuff you will not find anywhere else on SeanO'RourkeLive.com, but you're also going to find links to all those things I just mentioned and links to our Patreon campaign. Become a patron if you are so inclined to do so. And of course, our merch website. Nice little merch link right there. Takes you to a separate site, but that is our merch website. Pick up some common sense merch. Holidays right around the corner. Get some cool hoodies and t-shirts and mugs and stuff for all of your loved ones, friends and family, whatnot. People you buy gifts for, I guess. All right, like I said, return of the weekday show. It is not Thursday. Don't check your calendars. No need to. It's actually Wednesday, but we are off book on Sunday right now. We're not doing the usual Sunday thing. Really, we're going to have some funky schedule changes moving around over the next couple weeks, and part of that, which I'm going to get more into during parenting, but we are getting a little bit more back to normal, and part of that is my entire family getting back to normal. My wife, my beautiful and talented wife, is actually currently in Orlando. I know, unfortunately, she's in Florida, but she's around a bunch of industry people. There's a thing down there called IAPA. It's a big convention for everyone that's in the themed entertainment industry. So I got a ton of friends down there, including my wife, my sis Laura, and many other friends. Unfortunately, they miss my birthday most years because it's always the week of my birthday. It's like the week before Thanksgiving down there in Orlando. But of course, because of that, I am home alone with my now 5-year-old daughter. I just turned 5 last week, as a matter of fact, and it is a little back to normal, because if you've been a long-time listener of the podcast, you know that my wife would frequently travel for work, so this is nothing new, doing 7-8 days, just me and my kiddo. However, it's been almost 2 years. The last trip that she took was January of 2020, right before COVID really got big and started to hit everywhere. So it's been a change. I'm excited about it, but the interesting thing is I have regained my studio during the week. For those of you on the video, you can see it's the same studio you see every week. It's just I don't have to move a bunch of my wife's stuff out of here because she's not using it this week, as she has been since the beginning of kind of lockdown and pandemic and COVID, and therefore get some weekday time in here in the studio. And fortunately, since my daughter goes to school, I drop her off at school, do a little show prep, get this thing done, go pick her up at school, and they're going to have some scheduling changes because of that. So look forward to a couple of weekday shows coming up. And especially, again, if you've been a long-time listener, you know this was always on Thursdays. So next week, we're going to do a Wednesday night show, which is kind of the tradition ever since the inception of Go Tell It to the Wall, because didn't want to record on Thanksgiving night, but we were doing it on Wednesday night, so that's likely to happen next week. And also keep an eye out for a second episode this week. You know, wife's out of town, it's my birthday, so I'm just going to sit in the studio and record a bunch of junk. But that, and also, for those of you excited about it, which is like 2 of you out there, that means the return of the weekly rant. That's where I go old man, get off my lawn and rant about something that's irritating to me. Chances are it's also irritating to you, or maybe not. Maybe you're not an old man, get off my lawn type of guy the way I am, but, you know, ranting at a wall. That's what we do here at Go Tell It to the Wall. So keep that stuff in mind. You're going to see some funky stuff over the next week or so. Just as long as you are following the Facebook page, subscribed on YouTube and all that good stuff, and subscribed especially to the actual podcast, wherever you get your podcast episodes, you'll see those notifications come through, so don't worry about that. And if you are worried, just check back often on the website, on Facebook, and that'll keep you up to date on all the new episodes that are coming out with funky timing over the next week or so. All right. The structure has changed a little bit from Go Tell It to the Wall. We've basically integrated Common Sense Sundays along with the traditional Go Tell It to the Wall. But I also just wanted to start greedily. I wanted it to be episode 125 instead of like episode 60 or whatever we're on with Common Sense Sundays. All right, digital trends. Let's get into some digital trends. I'm sure many of you have seen this one out there. It's like, I see it multiple times a day, and it's this tag your favorite artists post. I see it mostly on Facebook, and I don't know who's doing this. It's funny. It seems to me like somebody started this trying to get some clicks and people reading their posts, and then other people just started picking it up. And if you don't know what I'm saying, basically someone goes on Facebook and says, tag your favorite musician or artist and see if they reply. And now, because most of my Facebook resides in the punk rock music world, I see these multiple times a day. It's kind of getting out of hand. And I just, and I feel bad for whoever's handling the Unwritten Law Facebook account, because I swear to God, every 5 minutes when I'm scrolling through, somebody's like, Unwritten Law, and they actually respond. And I'm sure lots of bands have been responding, but you know what? We've seen it. Why are we continuing to do this? I don't know that this is another phishing for passwords thing. I doubt it. But it's overdoing it. We're done. We've seen it. I'm seeing it way too much, and it starts to get a bit old. Like, there's nobody out there that follows music that hasn't seen these damn posts. So calm it down. If you see the posts, just scroll past it. We don't need to be bothering everyone with this stuff. And I'm seeing it literally 10 times a day as I'm scrolling through the Facebook there. So calm down. We get it. It can trend. Like, let something trend for a day, not 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. It's been a while. It's out of hand. All right. I'm going to briefly get into this. Because the reason it's in digital trends is it's such a hot button topic on socials right now, and I'm even seeing it in punk rock groups that I'm a part of, the arguing and the back and forth. And I will say, it's obviously very important. That would be the Kyle Rittenhouse trial out there in Wisconsin. And the reason I'm talking about it because it is dominating social platforms. And I will say, I am not a legal expert. I know there's a lot of intricacies to trials and the law. I'm not a lawyer. I don't even pretend to be one. I've never pretended to be one. I don't know anything about laws. I do know a little bit about entertainment law. I had to take entertainment law in college, but I went to film school. I'm not out here litigating cases or anything. That's the little bit of knowledge I have that I needed to become a producer in the film industry. But outside of that, I'm not talking about criminal stuff. That's nothing I will ever undertake. It's just not in my wheelhouse at all. But I will say, and this will be the only thing I say on it, is there's some common sense behind this. We can talk about intricacies of the law and everything else, but there is some common sense that can be linked to this as far as driving across state lines with an assault rifle, being underage, being a minor, and then putting yourself in that situation. That's all I'm going to say on that. Now, go ahead, continue to argue online. I'm not arguing with anyone. To me, it's a common sense issue. But as we know, in this world, but especially this country, things don't always work out that way. So I'm bracing for the worst, but I'm not going to sit here and argue. I'm not even going to rant about it. I'm just going to say common sense. A lot of what factors into this and what happened, you can look at from a common sense standpoint and realize who's in the wrong here. That's all I'm going to say on that. All right, Staples Center. For those of you not familiar with it, especially, I mean, it's pretty well known across the country and maybe even worldwide, because Staples Center is where the Los Angeles Lakers play. It's a basketball arena here, and I'm not talking about this because I'm talking about sports necessarily, but that is also dominating the digital platforms over the past day and a half or so. They have struck a new deal, and if you're not familiar with this, if you know nothing about sports at all, stadiums and arenas and baseball fields, they sell naming rights. And people always freak out about this, and I'll talk a little bit about, kind of what I've experienced, not personally, but grown up around and been around, and a lot of times this is brands, and people freak out about it. And then I often remind people, like, the most iconic baseball park in the U.S. is called Wrigley Field. It's named after a brand. So let's calm down on the brand stuff. I do understand that you get used to a certain amount of familiarity with a name for an arena. I get it. But Staples Center, they have announced a new naming rights contract. It is soon going to be called, and I believe it starts on Christmas Day. They're like, Christmas Day, that sounds like a good day to do it. It's going to be called Crypto.com Arena. So it's switching from Staples Center to Crypto.com Arena. I don't have a huge problem with this. I'm also not a huge Lakers fan by any means. I've been to Staples Center so many times. I've been in the luxury boxes. I've been in the seats. I've been to events there that weren't sporting events. All kinds of stuff at Staples Center. People are still going to call it Staples Center. I will say, could we just call it Crypto Arena, not Crypto.com Arena? It also does go to show how much the cryptocurrency thing is just continuing to build and everything else. And I will never speak to the cryptocurrency stuff because I don't know anything about it, and I never will. It's just not something that interests me. Go crypto all you want. It's way over my head. Just like NFTs, which we're probably going to talk about on the next episode. Way over my head. Do you. I'm not getting into it. So, of course, but everyone's freaking out. Here in LA, they're like, we're always going to call it Staples. Call it Staples Center. I can tell you, when I was growing up in San Diego in the 90s, they changed the stadium name down there from Jack Murphy Stadium to Qualcomm Stadium, and everyone freaked out. And they're like, how can you do this? This is nuts. Again, they were like, how are we using a brand name to name stadiums? Hello, Wrigley Park. Like, we have Smoothie King Arena, for those of you not familiar, down there in New Orleans. Smoothie King. It's named after the company Smoothie King. Like Oracle Arena up in the Bay Area, they're all named after companies. These companies pay to, it's marketing. It comes out of their marketing budget. So it happens all the time. This is nothing new. And if people still call it Staples Center, they're going to still call it Staples Center. People were calling Qualcomm Jack Murphy Stadium for many years after the name was changed, and eventually everyone kind of adopted it. And of course, now we're getting more .coms with all these things. I think we have an O.co arena. It's like the Overstock.com arena. There's a lot of them out there. But of course, dominating the social platforms because no Lakers fans want it to be called Crypto.com Arena. They want it to be called Staples Center. Whatever. And I will say, I'm also, usually I keep, my phone's on silent. Usually I keep it in my pocket. I do have it sitting on the studio desk right now because my kid's in school. I need to actually watch and make sure I don't get a phone call from school that something is wrong there. So for those of you on the video, if you see me looking down over here, my notes are on one side, my phone's on the other, so that I can make sure I'm not getting a phone call from the school, because I get about 18 of those a day. It's kind of ridiculous. And sometimes I'm like, dude, is my kid okay? So got to pay attention to that because my wife is on the other side of the country, and here I am in a studio yelling at a wall. All right, one more thing here in the digital trends. Hashtag stupid infrastructure questions. That's right. This was spawned from the infrastructure bill that was just signed recently in the past week or whatever. I see these things. I don't follow closely enough. And not because I don't care. It's just I'm wrangling a 5-year-old on a constant basis. I don't have time to keep up with details on things. But, of course, that infrastructure bill that's been a hot button topic within the political world really for a while now. Almost a year, because it's probably not long after Biden took office that this started gaining steam. But this is a fun one. This is a fun one. I think people are out there having fun with it. And I will say, I found a tweet. I probably should have quoted, given, what's the word I'm looking for? Gosh, you would think I never worked in media. but giving credit to the person that tweeted this. Unfortunately, I didn't do that. But this one I found, again, hashtag stupid infrastructure questions. And I quote, I know what a structure is, but what is infra? End quote. I thought that was pretty funny. Now, that's obviously very much a dad joke. I'm a dad. You're not going to think it's as funny, but go search that hashtag, have some fun with it, or share some of your own. I don't even fully know what I have an idea of what it is. It involves roads and things. And in fact, I did see some articles flying around there like, what's California getting out of this infrastructure deal? And, of course, I didn't read it because to me, it's funny. And that's what's fun. People are always like, California, the taxes there and stuff. And I talk to people in other states, and they're like, yeah, you can't even drive on our roads. And I look outside, and they're like repaving my road once a year. I'm like, oh, we're doing this again? You guys just, all right, okay, let's repave some roads again because a year is so long to be driving on a road that's not even like a high-trafficked road. We're talking, city residential area here, just north of downtown L.A., so, But I'm not a road expert. I'm not an infrastructure expert, so I just kind of go with the flow. I will say it's nice to have roads that you can actually drive on compared to friends I have in some other states that are like, good Lord, you just get a flat tire driving on this highway. All right, let's talk some COVID updates here. We're still doing COVID updates. Probably going to be doing these for another 5 years. Who knows? God, I hope not. That'd be brutal. I know I talked Halloween and how it was probably going to be quite different. I just want a quick mention on this. It was quite different from last year, but still different from a couple years ago. I noticed that people were kind of hankering for the Halloween celebration, but also being safe. Took my kid and some of her friends out around my neighborhood, and there were actually more houses than previous years. I think people were excited to kind of have kids finally coming back to the houses and everything else. Everyone was masked. We'd go to houses, kids are masked. I've got a mask on walking around, and everyone opening doors is masked and, handing out candy. I handed out some candy out front of my house, which was great to see the kids running around, and they were all very excited about it. So it was great to get again back to a little bit of normalcy, a little bit of what we're used to. And normal in quotes, what is normal? I don't know, but what we're kind of used to, the traditional things when it comes to Halloween and Thanksgiving and everything. My kid didn't have a birthday party in 2020. She got to have a little birthday party in 2021, all outdoors, of course, but she got to have a little party. So we're getting back to some of that, which is good to see. And part of that getting back to it is the vaccine that is now available. It's pretty widely available for kids 5 to 11. And in fact, full disclosure, I should share this with you. My kid got her first vaccine last week, her first shot of the vaccine. And she's doing well so far. So we'll keep an eye out, and she'll be getting her second vaccine, and then I will feel much safer as a parent once she's able to get her second vaccine. And I'll be getting my booster. My wife got her booster. I have a ton of friends that have already gotten their booster. Because she was traveling, she wanted to get it right away. I didn't want to get it just in case I had some side effects, despite the fact that I didn't really have side effects from my first 2 shots. With my wife leaving town and my daughter getting her first shot, I was like, you know what, just in case, because I'm very safe. I've been very lucky, knock on wood. I don't know if you could hear that through the microphone, but knock on wood, I've been pretty lucky as far as avoiding getting infected. Masks work. Masks, vaccines, masks, they work. And I'm really excited to see kids be able to be a little bit safer, And interestingly, we are seeing this in pro sports where the NFL is taking serious, they're putting in more precautions. They have all of the professional sports leagues and college teams. They have protocols to keep the athletes safe, to keep the coaches safe, to keep the staff safe. They are tightening down on some of those COVID protocols within the NFL. That is the football league here in the U.S. And they're doing this basically for the holidays. And it makes complete sense to me. They're adding in some more restrictions. This to keep everyone safe, knowing that more people are going to gather for the holidays. And I think this is just common sense to me that something like this should happen, because it's not that big of a deal to get tested, to wear a mask. It's not that big of a deal, but it could potentially save people. Let's continue to do that. So I'm glad to see that the NFL is actually doing something right for once. This is a rare occasion, but they're actually doing something right for once. Now, unfortunately, we are seeing a rise in cases across the United States. This is kind of that up and down. We're seeing another spike. We're still not out of it, and this is just further proof that we're still not out of it. So wear masks, wash your hands, and get the goddamn vaccine so we can stop seeing these crazy spikes, because everyone wants to see their family for the holidays. Let's all be smart out there and just do better, not only for yourself and your own family, but for other people and their families. It's not that difficult to be compassionate and caring about others and be safe and healthy. Let's do it. Unfortunately, we have and there's lots of cases out there. I bring this one up. Fat Mike of NoFX actually had a positive COVID case, a breakthrough case from everything we can tell, because apparently he was vaccinated as far as we know, and unfortunately got a breakthrough case. And the reason there's been a few of these. In fact, I'm going to rant about one in just a few minutes here. But unfortunately, Fat Mike was actually playing Punk in the Park. Just over a week and a half ago, he was at Punk in the Park. They actually did a meet and greet. Unfortunately, so far it looks like there are no, and I say unfortunately because he got infected, most likely at Punk in the Park or just before that. Fortunately, we're not seeing a big outbreak from people at Punk in the Park. You know why? Outdoors. So not being all, and trust me, many people were very close to each other. But wearing masks, let's, again, be smart with it. Hoping for a speedy recovery for Fat Mike, and that we continue to not see any kind of outbreak from Punk in the Park, which we're going to get more into next episode. I've got too much stuff for this episode. I'll give you a full recap. Punk in the Park was nuts, and I can do like a half an episode just on Punk in the Park. All right. I want to talk a little bit now. I want to rant a little bit right now. Speaking of the NFL, speaking of people not getting vaccinated, you probably heard about this one, even if you're not a sports fan. 2 weeks ago or whatever it was, the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers there in Wisconsin tested positive for COVID. Interestingly enough, people started immediately going back to things and trying to figure out if he was vaccinated. He actually misled the media and football fans and the public a few months ago by making it seem as though he was vaccinated and using terms that made it sound like he was vaccinated when in fact he was not vaccinated. Now, on top of this, and this is why I want to rant about it and talk a little bit about privilege, is here is a high-paid white male quarterback in the NFL who was completely flouting all of the COVID protocols for people who are not vaccinated against COVID. Flouting all of them. Wasn't wearing a mask in facilities. Was having press conferences with media live in the room when he was supposed to be doing it via Zoom or other ways. Just completely flaunting all of this stuff. Why? Because he thinks he's better than everybody. And on top of that, I've been saying, and here's the thing. I'm done arguing with people. Everybody should get vaccinated. There's no reason not to get vaccinated. Absolutely no reason. Now, there's obviously some exceptions. If the vaccine's going to kill you because you have some kind of alert, yes, don't get the vaccine then, okay? But there's no reason for people to be like, my religious beliefs, all this other stuff, and there's microchips. Stop, okay? But I'm done arguing with people, and I will say if someone's not going to get the vaccine, you're not going to convince them to get the vaccine. However, be honest about not getting the vaccine. So people were comparing this to an NBA player who currently can't play for his team because his team plays in New York and he can't play in the arena. But he has at least been honest and said, I'm not getting the vaccine. I respect that much, much, much more than millionaire Aaron Rodgers, who decides the rules do not apply to him at all and is potentially putting media, other players, coaches, fans in danger because he doesn't care about getting the vaccine or adhering to these protocols, which is utterly ridiculous. And this is privilege to a T. To a T. And on top of that, there was no real penalties. He got a little fine because he was flaunting these protocols, but nothing. There are guys in the NFL that have gotten more fines for wearing different funky cleats. Yes, because those funky cleats were endangering other people of getting COVID. So clearly that is the bigger deal than this asshole Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay just doing whatever he wants because he doesn't care. And on top of that, apparently he was getting COVID, and he actually petitioned the NFL and said, well, I'm using a homeopathic remedy. You know what that homeopathic remedy was? He's good friends with Joe Rogan. He was using ivermectin. So he was trying to get an excuse from the NFL saying that he didn't need to follow those protocols. And then when the NFL denied it, he just completely ignored him and everyone looked the other way. I'm telling you. White male millionaires. Biggest scourge on this country. That's obviously an exaggeration. Don't at me. Is that what the kids say these days? Don't email me. I've been getting some of those hatred ones lately. It's ridiculous. That's enough of that ranting. Well, that's enough of the ranting for the weekly rant. Bad on you, Aaron Rodgers. Do better. Do better. I don't think athletes necessarily need to be a role model, but do better. This isn't even a role model thing. This is simply a safety thing. And if you're not going to do it, be honest about it and follow the protocols. It's not difficult. My kid's 5. She wears a damn mask all day in school. 5. You're worse than a 5-year-old. Unbelievable, Aaron Rodgers. Not a fan at all. I can't stand him. Just can't stand him. Can't stand him. And I had respect for him until this happened. I said, no. You're not better than everyone else. You're not. Acting all better than everyone else. Hanging out with Joe Rogan and talk about a meeting of minds. Meeting of idiots. All right, mental health. I want to talk about this briefly because I've seen a lot of this, and I've seen people, I'm getting off Facebook and all that. And fine, get off Facebook. Get off Instagram, get off Twitter. Although, I will say Twitter, you can only curate down so much because you end up seeing so much hatred on Twitter. But you can control your social circles. This is very important when it comes to your mental health. I've talked about this previously, especially when it comes to hanging out with people in person. Don't force yourself to go to a social gathering or party that's just a bunch of people you don't like. It's not something you should do. There's no obligation for you to do that. It's not worth your own mental health to deal with people that you don't want to be around, even if it's very minor. You're just people that annoy you. You may, it's not a big deal, but why? Why would you do that? I remember years ago, I was like, I'm at an age where I realized I don't want to hang out. I don't want to hang around people that I don't like being around. Why would I do that? And it's not an I'm better than you thing. Just because you don't like hanging out with someone doesn't mean you're better than them. It just means you're different. You don't enjoy the same things necessarily. That's all it is. Everyone on earth doesn't need to be friends. We can all be cordial to each other, but we don't all need to be friends. Especially when it comes to like politics and everything else. Why would you do that? And social platforms can be very toxic. But you can also do this within social platforms. You don't need to be friends with everybody. You don't need to be friends with that guy that you knew in high school that you don't agree with anything on and you have nothing in common with just because you went to the same high school. Why? Why do we do this to ourselves? And that's why I've been saying for a while, I understand how Facebook can be toxic, but put yourself in the right groups. It's also a good place to get support. It's a good place to meet people. That can be beneficial to your mental health. So keep that in mind. You don't have to be forced to do this. Learn to say no without feeling guilty. Because you're not guilty of anything. We often, as humans, just in general, unless you're a sociopath, we tend to want to please others. Even the biggest assholes out there, will still try to please others subconsciously. I'm guilty of it all the time. All the time I'm guilty of it. And I'm not even that good of a person. So imagine like a good person out there, a nice person out there, how much they're acquiescing to others despite not really wanting to. You don't have to. It's not worth your mental health and your comfort. Your comfort should come first. Now, obviously, you do need to put yourself in uncomfortable situations sometimes. There are times, but it shouldn't be at the expense of your mental health. Maybe you go to a play or something. You're supporting your niece or your nephew at their play, and you're like, oh God, this is long. But that's not hurting your mental health. However, you shouldn't go to some party where there's a couple people there that just get under your skin immediately, and you got to hang out with them for a couple hours. There's no reason for that. And the same thing with family, with holidays. Remember this with holidays coming up. You're not required to go sit at a table for Thanksgiving dinner and hang out with a bunch of people you don't like. That's not a requirement. You can say no. It's not worth your mental health. Especially these days with how divisive we are. 50 years ago, we wouldn't be arguing about a vaccine. Everyone would just be taking it. They did. But now it's a hot button issue? Unbelievable, man. Absolutely unbelievable. So take care of yourself. That's what you got to do. Put your own mental health first. Your own health and your own mental health first. I'm seeing a lot of the posts like, oh, my uncle's upset because he can't come to dinner because he refuses to get vaccinated. Well, that's his choice. You have the right to not have people unvaccinated at your dinner. And you know what? That uncle has the same right to not be vaccinated. But don't complain when there's consequences from it. Protect your family, protect yourself, and protect your mental health. All right, we got some positive news. Speaking of Thanksgiving dinner, many of you probably saw this. It's been viral. It was viral a few years ago, in 2016, actually coinciding with the inception of Go Tell It to the Wall. There was a young man who received a text message. I believe this happened in Arizona, but don't quote me on the exact state and city and everything. received a text message in error inviting him to Thanksgiving dinner. He responded and said something along the lines of, I think you have the wrong number, but hey, can I still come to dinner? The woman who sent the text, she was trying to send it to her grandson, I believe, said, yes, I will feed you. That's what grandmas do. Went to Thanksgiving dinner with her and the family that year. Was invited to Thanksgiving. And sure enough, every year since 2016 has joined them for Thanksgiving, and we've gotten word that this year, yet again, and I don't know if last year is included in that because of COVID and everything else, but again, this year, he will be sharing Thanksgiving dinner with the family that inadvertently invited him to dinner in 2016. And here is kind of the opposite of my rant, because I often rant about how dumb people are and how they lack common sense, and Aaron Rodgers who just flaunts everything. We also have a lot of positivity out there, and we have people building great relationships out of a mistake. And now for 5 years now, these people have been friends and become friends and continue to build on that friendship. It's proof that people can be kind. It's such a cliche, but positivity spreads. It really does. And I know I'm the same way. I'm very curmudgeonly at times. I'm very like, I'll be out in a crowd or something. And I'm not like pushing people out of the way. But I'm like, oh God, like me at Disneyland trying to get through a crowd. I'm like, just move, get out of the way. And sometimes I'm like not in a great mood for stuff. And many of you out there, I'm sure, can relate to this. And maybe I go to the grocery store and I'm like, but then someone at the grocery store just randomly gives you a smile. Hi, how you doing? Or in a cheery mood. And suddenly you're in a bit of a cheery mood. Positivity breeds positivity. I'm sure most of you can realize this within your life, and it's a fact. So let's continue to spread that. Do things like this. Don't be like Aaron Rodgers. Be like this grandma and just open up your home and your table. Now, maybe you don't do that like crazy now because COVID's still going around. But remember things like this. The kindness of strangers and what can be built off of that. It's very important. We need more of this in the world today, especially with so much negativity going on in the world. We could use more of this, more friendships, more positive friendships, and continuing and building on that. And I'm hoping people see that story and they're like, oh, and maybe that changes their mood on a given day. It really can. This almost goes hand in hand with mental health. So keep that in mind. Spread it. It's easy to give a smile. It's easy to give a wave. Not difficult at all. It doesn't require a lot of energy. Like I said, I try to do it as much as possible, but I'm guilty of it. But sometimes I get a smile or a wave, and I'm giving a smile or a wave back, and then I'm probably giving a smile and a wave to the next person. It's just what you do, Absolutely. And part of that is just me because of the punk rock world. It's so funny. And like I said, I'm going to give a Punk in the Park recap at next episode probably, but running into people with same shirts and everything, and so you're fast friends, I mean, I literally had a guy walking by me as I'm watching the Vandals. And again, this little bit of the recap for you. Wearing a Barstool Preachers hat. I'm wearing my Barstool Preachers sweatshirt that night, and I was like, hey. I was like, cool hat, and he's like, thanks. And I was like, look at and he's like, yeah. So easy to just do that, Everyone has at least a little something in common. Avoid the people that you don't like, but it's okay to be positive and have that cheerful attitude a lot of times, and spread that cheerful attitude. All right, let's talk some parenting. Oh boy. So like I said, my wife is back to traveling down there in Orlando. My kid's going to be super jealous when she starts seeing pictures because it's a convention down there. But of course, all these companies, these agencies and companies, they end up going to the parks. So I know my wife's going to be like, look, I rode blah, 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 blah. And be like, that's cool. I sat at home with my 5-year-old and yelled at a wall a couple times. So it was fantastic. I tend to not get as jealous just because I enjoy theme parks. I don't like crowds. When I worked at Disney, it was much better because I had a pass, and I would go. Raining on a Wednesday, perfect. That's the best time to go to the parks. You can actually ride a bunch of stuff. There's ways to kind of get around that. Now that I don't work there anymore, I don't have this pass to just go for like an hour, stuff like that. But for first time for an entire week, and like I said, almost 2 years. So it's been a bit of a challenge, but it's like riding a bike. It's that old cliche. because we just kind of fell into it. I was a little bit worried my daughter was going to be like, where's mommy? Where's. She's been fine. I mean, we're thankful for technology in this respect that we can video call her while she's down there in Orlando, but it's back to it. We're just kind of back to, for lack of a better word, getting more and more back to normal, and that's what we're doing. But it is affecting episodes, obviously. Part of that is birthday. I've mentioned this before. Birthdays, Thanksgiving. My birthday is tomorrow. My daughter's birthday was last week, and we had Halloween before that. We just hit this gauntlet of stuff, small trips and everything else. So the scheduling for episodes is just all over the place. We'll have some weekday episodes. We're getting back to this. We'll get back to Common Sense Sundays, and we'll absolutely have a holiday episode, of course. And then we'll hit our holiday break. So, again, you'll get updated on all those things. I will say my kid got a particular birthday gift. I'm not sure what it's called. It's actually awesome. It's really cool. Her and I built it the other day, and it's one of these like physics marble things. You build it, and then you put the marble in, it goes flying, and literally as a trampoline, so the marble goes airborne at one point. A lot of fun. And that's why this isn't in ranting, because it is worth the fun, but I will point out, if you're a parent and buying toys for your kids, keep certain things in mind. They're these little metal marbles, like they look like large ball bearings. They're metal. They're moderately heavy. It's not so much the weight that's crazy, but these marbles start going flying. Came with a bag of like 12 of them. As soon as my kids started, I'm like, uh-oh. And we have hardwood floors in my house. So it's like, you can see it behind me if you watch the video. All through the house, it's hardwood everywhere, except for some rugs. So I said, okay. After balls are going flying into everything and stuff, and I'm finding dust that I was like, oh, there's dust there. I must have missed that. So I guess it was good for that. But I was like, this could be a bit dangerous. And I'm worried about myself. My kid is spry enough that she's probably not going to, I'll trip on one of those at like 11 o'clock at night trying to go get in my bed or whatever, and I'm going down. So, of course, move this thing over to the rug, and I'm like, all right, we're going to play with it on the rug because the marble can still move through the thing, but then the rug is going to stop it instead of it going flying across the hardwood floor. I'm telling you, trampoline, for lack of a better word. It's a little bouncy thing, and the ball falls, go doing, just goes flying. It's like, okay, ball bearings flying everywhere. Keep that stuff in mind when you're buying toys for your kids, because it can be dangerous at times. Well worth it. So much fun. It's just certain things like that, but just a heads up. If you got something that rolls like that, put it on a rug instead of the hardwood, because stuff goes flying. Kids are not clean. My kid is not messy, but she is not clean. There's often, end of the day, I'm cleaning up just piles of toys. And she'll clean up too. I mean, I'm trying to get her cleaning up more and more, especially at her age, but it's piles of toys. So can you imagine a pile of these marbles just sitting somewhere? Oh, there they go, and flying around the house. Who knows what? Like I said, I'm the klutzy one, so I would be tripping and falling and knocking myself out or something. Then my kid's like, "Where's Dad?" "Oh, Daddy's sleeping on the kitchen floor." No, Daddy knocked himself out tripping on a ball bearing here. All right, one more thing in parenting. I want to talk about this. Something I've noticed with my kid. We do movie nights, and we also watch. There's very minimal television in my house for my kid. Really, for me too. My wife and I watch TV like late at night. After the kid goes to bed, we'll watch, like an hour or two of television. Junky sitcoms. I've mentioned that before. I love me a junky, funny sitcom. I don't mean junky in a bad way. Just cheesy. Cheesy is the word I'm looking for there. So my kid doesn't get a ton, but she does. Watches a couple episodes a day, or we have a movie night on the weekends. And in fact, we had a movie night Monday night because we didn't have time over the weekend. My kid was feeling a little tired, caught a bit of a cold, so we did movie night. And it's funny. So it's kind of twofold. It was one thing when I was a kid and you had a bunch of VHS tapes, and you're like, we're gonna watch one of these VHS tapes. That's how I knew. Like, looking back on my mental illness, I was the kid that would go through all the VHS tapes that we had in the collection. Any of them that weren't rewound, I would just sit there and rewind them in the VCR. I believe my mother got upset at me because it's not good for the VCR. You got to get a tape rewinder, but we never had one of those. So I rewind. All these tapes need to be rewound. But when we were kids, it was you're like, all right, we're watching this one. Now, I pull up Disney Plus, and I think my kid just gets overwhelmed at times. It's like, okay, what movie do Frozen 2, Zootopia, no. So we ended up watching Cars the other night, which she's seen. It's not her first time. And I've noticed this trend lately, not only with movies, but with shows. And she's like, oh, Cars, that's my favorite movie. And I'm like, is it though? Or is it just your favorite movie right now because we're watching it? She's been doing this with shows too. We started watching that Arthur show, which I've never watched. I believe that was a little younger for me. I don't know. I never watched it. It's like a PBS show. So I was a PBS watcher as a kid, but I never watched that Arthur show. For those of you not familiar with it, Google it. And if you're not familiar with it, you've probably seen the picture of a animated fist like being clenched. I've seen that, and I knew it was Arthur. I know of Arthur. I just never seen it, and it was funny. My kid's watching it like a week ago, and that episode with the clenched fist came on. I went, "Oh my God!" Now I understand. I knew it was an angry. It was kind of you're like showing you're angry, but I saw the episode. I was like, "Oh wow, full circle here." But she's also doing that. She's like, "Arthur is my favorite." And it's like, and watch. She'll come home today. Later we'll watch TV, and I'll put on, Sesame Street's my favorite. So I think it's an age thing that has been happening. And for those of you that are parents out there, maybe you've experienced this, but she just automatically goes to her favorite thing. Although sometimes it does take forever. That's the old thing I think I've said it before on the podcast. You don't know what it's like to be a dad, or I mean a parent in general. I don't mean that in a sexist way, but a parent. You don't know what it's like to be a parent until you have rage waited. Something I do. Kids often take 20 minutes to put on a pair of shoes. And that's the overwhelming nature of it. When we were kids, you came home from school or Saturday morning, you turned on the cartoon channel and you're like, this is what we're watching. Maybe you have a couple channels. This is what we're watching. Now it's like you stream everything. So I pull up PBS Kids, I pull up Netflix and Amazon Prime and Disney Plus, and she's like, I don't know what I want to watch until she figures out what her favorite thing is. And she's like, oh, my favorite. Now we're watching that. So hang in there, parents. That's what I've been doing, is hanging in there with the rage waiting. All right, let's get into a little bit of common sense. I should mention, for those of you not on the video, I am wearing my Boston to Berkeley t-shirt. Quite proud of that. Dropkick Murphy's Rancid Boston to Berkeley t-shirt. I did already give that recap recently, but I'm one of those people that I need to wash everything before I wear it, and I literally gave the recap the morning after this show, so the shirt wasn't clean yet. But plenty of episodes to get these shirts in on. And in fact, I got a plethora of shirts the weekend of Punk in the Park, which I'll talk a little bit about because I'm going to recap a different show from that weekend. All right, some common sense. There's a New York Times article that just came out, and I am going to give you the exact title of the article. Okay, New York Times, fairly reputable news organization, I guess. I don't know. I can never keep track of which one's reputable, which one's not. Who knows? However, well-known news organization. Here is the title of that article, and I quote, "Does it matter if I eat the stickers on fruit and vegetables?" End quote. You ever bought an apple at the store or a banana? It's got a little Chiquita sticker on there. Or apples have, it's usually a number on there so they can keep track of the stock. Orange, all the fruits, veggies, they've got stickers on them. That's how they keep track of that when you go to the grocery store. New York Times published an article talking about whether it's safe to eat those stickers. Common sense says, just go ahead and peel that sticker off. I don't understand the big, this is the world we live in, and this is why we need more common sense in the world, especially in this country, because I guarantee there's not articles coming out in Europe right now saying, is it safe to eat the stickers? I will say I did read part of the article. It's not going to kill you, but you shouldn't eat the stickers. But that's just common sense. Why are we eating stickers? Can you imagine if I just started pulling stickers off the wall behind me? Oh, that was a yummy sticker. Is it that hard to pull a sticker off a piece of fruit? Are you not looking at a piece of fruit before you eat it? You're not washing that bad boy? Come on. Unless it's a banana, you don't need to pull. You don't need to pull the sticker off a banana. You just peel the damn things. If you're peeling it, it's one thing. An orange, leave the sticker on. I'm talking apples and stuff like. Yeah, peel the damn sticker off. But that's the world we live in. We have an article from the New York Times, reputable news organization, telling us whether it's safe to eat the stickers on fruit. People always wonder these things. Why we have to have warnings and stuff. This is why. This is why we have to have ridiculous warnings. Like, don't put your hand in here. That's why we have these things. Because people write articles about whether it's safe to eat a sticker off a piece of fruit instead of just peeling the goddamn sticker off. Sometimes I can't. And that's just further proof that it's not worth arguing with people. You start getting into an argument on social platforms, keep in mind that we have New York Times articles asking if it's okay to eat the stickers on fruit. And know that you're probably arguing with someone who doesn't know if they should take the sticker off the fruit. Is it worth arguing with them? Nope. No, it's not. You're never going to agree with everyone in the world on everything, but we should all be able to agree that you take this damn sticker off your damn fruit before you eat it. But apparently not. Thanks, New York Times. Appreciate the content. Common sense. I do want to talk about this one. It's going to sound like a cliche. I recently my driver's license expired. Yes, I had to get a new driver's license. That was exciting. And I'll tell you, you've probably heard about it. It's a real ID thing. I believe every state has it. But I was like, well, I got to get a new driver's license. May as well get this real ID thing so I can travel when the law comes into effect. And it was just, it's same cost. If you're getting a new driver's license anyway, you may as well get the real ID. Highly recommend that. But make sure you have the right paperwork. But the old cliche is how annoying the DMV is and how much you have to wait and everything, and I get it. I've been there at times years ago going to the DMV without an appointment. But I will say, I live in Los Angeles. You could call this a fairly populous city within the United States. That's kind of inarguable. So there's a lot of people here. And you would think the DMVs here would be quite difficult to deal with. No. My last 10 trips to the DMV, never a problem. Now, I will say the key is to make an appointment at the DMV. But I even saw people come in without appointments that were getting help pretty quick. So the old cliche, it's fun to joke about it. But I don't think it's really true anymore, especially when you can do appointments and everything. It's funny because I go in and I check in at the desk, and I hand over. I was like, well, here's my appointment number, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, cool. And I'm looking around. I'm like, it doesn't seem too crazy here. There's no big line out the door. So I asked the woman, I said, hey, is it, it's not a busy day? Was I lucky? She's like, no, actually, it hasn't really been crazy lately. I think, and it's you can do so many things online now, including making the appointment. And I went through a little portal on there, and it was like, you need these things to be able to get your real ID. So no problem, appointment, all set. In and out. 10 minutes total. And in fact, I think I waited longer to get my new photo taken for my driver's license than I did to actually get helped at the counter. I sat there for 2 minutes, and they're like, oh, here you go. Boom, 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 boom. Got it. Good. Here, pay this. Good. And then I stand in the photo line for a few minutes. So I highly recommend. And like I said, she said, between the website and people actually having documentation, because you can do things online. I often register my cars online. It's just easy. They send you the sticker. But you not only that, but you know what documentation you need to have, so you're not going up to the counter and arguing with people. I won't say it was a pleasure, but it's not as painful as the jokes would have you believe, at least not anymore, especially with an appointment. Make an appointment. I live in Los Angeles. I was in and out of the DMV. It was a weekday. Well, DMV's closed on the weekends. Maybe Mondays maybe a little crazier, but it's not that hard. We can still make the jokes. It's okay. I'm not saying common sense says don't make the jokes. Just common sense says it's not as difficult as it actually comes across as anymore. I think, I'm sure there was a time we didn't have computers at one time. We didn't have the internet, and you're just like, well, shit. I got to go. Let me take the day off to go stand in line at the DMV, but it's different nowadays. You can do so many things digitally and be better prepared. And then the friendliness, too. Everyone very friendly at the DMV. And a little small talk here and there. It's great. No problems. So common sense says get yourself an appointment and have your damn documentation ready. I did. I had double. He's like, oh, do you have this and this? And I was like, yes. Oh, I also have this if that's not, and I have this if that's not acceptable. Not that hard to do. All right. This one's very important. I want to talk about this in common sense because this statistic just came out this week. We've had an increase in drug overdoses in the United States of America. Last year, there were over 100,000 drug overdoses in the United States, which is something like a 30% increase from the year before. 30%. Oh, yeah. No, that is there. I might save that. Just remembering something else that we're going to talk about in entertainment, but I'm running short on time, so we're actually going to save that. I'm going to talk about that another time. Increased drug overdoses. Now, for those of you not familiar with it, this is largely due to the drug fentanyl being laced in other recreational drugs. I've had conversations with people about this, and in fact, it's come up in a couple of my dad groups, people with older kids or nephews or nieces or whatever that have had to have these drug talks. Now, full disclosure, when I was younger, much like many other people, even our parents' generation, you did a little experimenting. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, I never touched anything. I'm a big proponent of recreational medical marijuana, but even things beyond that, I've seen people experiment and be fine. I've experimented myself to an extent in my younger days. I'm a little too old now. Sorry, I don't know if I could handle certain things. However, things have really changed since then, and that main thing is this fentanyl. And those are the conversations I see happening. Is like you can't risk it. It used to be like, oh, you want to try a little cocaine, or yeah, sure. And I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying it's so different nowadays. You don't know what you're getting. It's just not safe anymore to experiment with recreational drugs. Now, marijuana, yes, especially in California, they test the shit out of marijuana. You go into a collective, they're testing the hell out of it, or you have a good connection. You're getting good stuff, so it's all good. However, when it comes to other recreation, you have to be extremely careful nowadays. And we can see that 100,000 cases, deaths from overdose last year. 100,000. And that's with COVID going on. So not even as many like big parties and that kind of stuff going on. It's not worth it anymore. I'll tell you that right now. Common sense says it is not worth it. And the other common sense thing to keep in mind is, well, I would say just avoid it completely. If you're going to experiment, there are test kits out there for fentanyl. And in fact, there's many organizations out there that give them. Punk Rock Saves Lives is one of them that carries fentanyl test kits, as well as Narcan. If you're not familiar with Narcan, that can stop an overdose. They carry these things. So if you are going to experiment, be smart about it. I don't know if it still exists, but when I was in my younger days, the early days of the internet, late 90s, there was a website called partysafe.com, and you could go on there and you look at certain things and be like, okay, that one has been deemed safe by whoever's out there. And I don't know how accurate it was, but I know that website existed. There's probably resources like that still out there, but just be smart about it. It is not worth it. I don't mean to laugh there, but it's really not. Again, let me tell you a story of a pot and a kettle, but it's different nowadays with this fentanyl stuff. All right, let's move on to some entertainment news, and then we're going to wrap up episode 125. What I'm listening to lately, this one's kind of a funky one, and I'm probably going to revisit some of these bands, but I will say, and I'm going to give a recap in just a moment, I've been listening to quite a few bands, and I've talked about Half Past Two, and I'm going to talk about their record release. But some of the bands I've been listening to over the past week and a half are Goodwin Club, The Goodwin Club, Hooray for Our Side. Highly, highly, highly recommend Hooray for Our Side. You're missing out if you're not listening to them. Trash Monsters and the Von Tramps. The Von Tramps, actually, I believe, just signed to Spam, the record company over there. So you're going to see some new stuff from the Von Tramps as well. They put on a fantastic show, and in fact, here we go. For those of you on the camera, big shout out to Tom, wall fan, Patreon, Common Censor, Tom, for actually picking up one of these record release show posters for me. That was at the House of Blues there. And all of these bands, except for Half Past Two, were new to me. I've heard of some of them, but I hadn't really listened to them. Definitely hadn't seen them live. But thank you to Tom for this. I never get show posters at shows simply because I'm always afraid of wrinkling them, like when I'm doing stuff. But Tom actually picked one up for me. Not only that, but framed it. For those of you that are on the video, you can actually see that framed poster. I'm going to set it over here now so I don't end up kicking it while it's on the floor. I had it sitting there so I could show everybody. But again, check out those bands. I'm probably going to do more in-depth what I'm listening to about them, but I'm very excited to discover those bands. And like I said, got to see them all at the Half Past Two record release party, which was down there at the House of Blues in Anaheim. That was the start of my ridiculous weekend. For like the fifth time this episode, I'll mention, we'll do a Punk in the Park recap next episode. But I basically went down to Anaheim, House of Blues there the Friday before Punk in the Park. So I did 3 days in a row, which isn't usually a big deal for me, except Punk all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and Friday night leading up to that. I cannot recommend Half Past Two enough live, as well as all of the other bands. The Goodwin Club, I will say, they came out, the lead singer came out dressed as Marty McFly. The entire horn section was dressed as Doc Brown from Back to the Future, and the guitarist was dressed as a DeLorean, complete with the flux capacitor on his chest. Such a good show they put on, as well as, like I said, Hooray for Our Side. You're missing out if you're not listening to Hooray for Our Side. Trash Monsters did a great job, and the Von Tramps. High energy. Had actually never been in the small room at House of Blues Anaheim down there, so it was really cool to be in there. It's much more intimate than the big room they have there at House of Blues. There was another big show going on, so we were in that smaller room. They sold it out. Congrats to Half Past Two on their record release, as well as selling out the record release party and putting on such a good show. And I will say, the only thing not awesome about it was the traffic. Because for those of you familiar with Southern California, I live in Los Angeles. Had to drive down to Anaheim for a Friday evening show. Cursing the whole. I actually wasn't cursing. I'm just sitting in the car like, well, all right, I'm in for it. Got my nicotine lozenge and just kind of cruising down the 5, getting to Anaheim down there. For those of you familiar with the area, and the other cool thing, big shout out to Trash Monsters and the Goodwin Club. Trash Monsters, they were giving out T-shirts. Grabbed me a T-shirt, and I love the design because it is Oscar the Grouch with a mohawk. And the Goodwin Club, also thank you to them. The lead singer walked out from backstage and said, hey, you want a T-shirt? Handed me a T-shirt for the Goodwin Club, and that's why earlier I kind of laughed about T-shirts, because I was like, I walked out of house, and I bought myself a new Half Past Two T-shirt, needed one of those. Their new design from their album is fantastic. I love neon designs, so I had to have it. And so I'm walking out of there from House of Blues with three T-shirts. Got them hanging on my shoulders and stuff. One's tucked in my back pocket. Like, all right, T-shirt central. So thank you to all those bands. Such a great show. I've been listening to all of them for the past week and a half or so, and we'll be listening more in depth. And like I said, we'll probably get into some more I'm listening tos with those bands, as well as some other bands at Punk in the Park. It's going to be a lot of new bands coming through here, a lot of show recaps and all kinds of other good stuff. And there's still some shows coming up. Pre-COVID, a lot of shows were kind of done around this time of year, but now we have stuff stretching into December, which is really awesome because we're getting more shows. I think it's everyone making up for lost time with COVID, if you know what I mean. All right, I'm gonna save that. I know people are gonna. There's a thing that happened, and I will tell you, it literally happened while I was at Punk in the Park, and news started spreading through there. I'm gonna talk about it next episode. I don't. We're running out of time. I don't have enough on this. But I will say, one mention real quick is we did get confirmation on this, and I talked about it after the Bayside Bomb Pop show a little while ago when Polly wasn't there. We now have confirmation that Polly Van Damme has officially left the Bomb Pops. She will no longer be playing with the Bomb Pops. And if you're interested, go check out, I believe it's Jughead's Room is the name of the podcast. She spoke pretty in-depth about it. Not a lot of hard feelings. She just wanted to move in another direction. Part of that was her health. So I'm very, very, very disappointed, and I know a lot of people are, to see Polly leave the band. I love all 4 of them in that band. Love them. They're great people in person. They play great music. They put on a good show. So I am disappointed, but I'm very happy for Polly that she's able to move forward, despite the fact that she will be incredibly missed, not seeing her playing with Bomb Pops. And unfortunately, probably not hearing her songs, because I did see the Bomb Pops again since the Bayside show, and they're not playing Polly songs. So that's a disappointment. But first and foremost, I'm happy that Polly is moving in a direction that she's happy about, and that everything's kind of amicable, and we're going to move forward. And we're not losing the Bomb Pops. We did lose Polly, which sucks, but you'll still be able to follow Polly Van Damme's career. So good on you, Polly. Sad to see you go, but glad to see that you're taking care of yourself. All right, like I said, for the 6th time this episode, Punk in the Park recap coming next episode. Got to get real in depth with that one. That's like half an episode that I could get into. It's so much fun, so much to talk about. It's going to be insane. And I will mention this for the next few episodes, and I mentioned it last episode. The November pre-order for Bassists Against Racists is live. Head on over to Chaos Merch. Pick yourself up one of the 2 reprints. That is Eloise from the Linda Lindas, or Lynn Lee from Bad Cop, Bad Cop. I already had the Eloise one. I've said this before, I missed out on the Lynn Lee one, which was the very first one, and I've already put in my pre-order for the Lynn Bassists Against Racist t-shirt. Make sure you do the same over at chaosmerch.com. And, of course, as always, designs from the fabulous Paul Smith of Zombie Teeth Clothing. And all of this, of course, the brainchild of Lynn from Bad Cop. Bad Cop. Yes. Bassists Against Racists. I'm seeing more and more of those shirts around. It's fantastic. It's fantastic to see. All right. That's going to do it for us. We are out of time. I got to go pick up my kid at school shortly and then come back here and finish getting all this episode stuff up. Remember, we're going to have some funky schedule stuff. There will be another weekday episode probably 2 days from now. Probably going to do one Friday, and then as well as next week, Thanksgiving week, so keep an eye out for updates on that. And, of course, best way to keep up with that is our Facebook page. Make sure you follow that, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. You can also follow or subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's going to keep you updated, youtube.com/GoTellItToTheWall. My own personal Instagram account, which is at SoCalSean, SoCalSean. Again, at SoCalSean. All kinds of great photos up there. In fact, there's a lot of recent show photos up there, so make sure you're following there if you're into that stuff. And like I said, I usually follow back unless you're just one of those show me, look at my butt Instagrams, which is fine. Do you. It's just, that's not what I go on Instagram to look at, like, cute kids. I do a lot of looking at shoes on Instagram, which is terrible because I'm like, those Vans are awesome. And then they're like, European. And I'm like, oh, it's going to cost me $5,000 to get those shoes. But I still like looking at them. And, of course, shows and artists and all that kind of stuff. So make sure you're following me over on the Instagram. And, of course, most importantly, all-encompassing of those things would be SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Bookmark that one. Check back often. You're going to get all kinds of exclusive stuff on there, as well as updates and, of course, links to our Patreon page, as well as our merch website. Become a patron. Pick up some merch. You know you want to support Go Tell It to the Wall. And if you don't support Go Tell It to the Wall, go out there and support some other artists or musicians through Patreon, as well as merch sites and all that good stuff. Christmas is coming up. Go buy merch from artists and stuff instead of Walmart and Target and Amazon, and get the good stuff. It's out there, and you can spend pretty much the same amount of money and get higher quality stuff, more creative stuff. All that's out there. So do that as well. But, of course, consider Go Tell It to the Wall for your merch needs and your Patreon usage. All right, that is going to do it. This has been episode 125 of Go Tell It to the Wall podcast. I am your absolute favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And remember, Wall fans, we will be back in a couple days, same wall place, same wall time. And remember, Wall fans, Common Sensors podcast consumers, no matter what you do, no matter who you're with, no matter where you go, and especially no matter why you aren't doing it, always use common sense.